Just that you can't carry a town gun, that I have two firearms, one per person. You imagine Tombstone. Bloody gunfights, unforgettable one-liners, and Sam Elliott's mustache steals every scene. The twist. Elliott recently unveiled a hidden reality legendary Western fans rarely detected. The sort of detail that alters your movie viewing. And it's irreversible once seen. What did Sam Elliott confess about Tombstone that shocked fans after all these years? Stay up, because this realization may just alter your film viewing forever. Just what was Tombstone about? Thinking of Tombstone, your mind goes beyond Westerns. Thinking of Gunsmoke and Bat Lee's memorable ensemble ever screened. Released 1993, this was no ordinary Western. The vision of George P. Cosmatos, inspired by writer Kevin Jarre, directed the picture originally. Early manufacturing replacement. And the cast was great. Kurt Russell determinately represented Wyatt Earp, while Val Kilmer transformed Doc Holliday, film legend who steals scenes. But the magnificence continued. Sam Elliott carried Virgil Earp, that overpowering presence that felt cut from stone. Bill Paxton spoke Morgan Earp, terrible weakness made his fate hurt more. Powers Booth was terrifying as Curly Bill. Type of villain who made air his entrance change the scene. Then came Michael Biehn's eerie Johnny Ringo, a madcap performance of pure poetry. Dana Delaney lit it U-Pan passion to Josephine Marcus, swaying enhanced the plot. And finally, the narration was from Mitchum himself, a legend lending legends with his voice. Together, this was more than movies. Tombstone was event against the bloody backdrop the 1880s in southeast Arizona. The narrative is historical. The notorious OK Corral gunfight Herb vendetta ride. Critics laud its direction and great acting with Kilmer's acute. Imagine Doc Holliday snatching practically every scene. The box cost $73.20 million. Office hit turned cult classic. And the kicker. Fans now, decades later, I keep quoting it. What if you consider yourself an expert on Tombstone? Think again. Because behind all the famous quotes, duels, and swag tears, there are tales that even devoted admirers may not know. Kevin Jarre got fired. Not just Tombstonia Western. One of the most beloved, forever watchable movies modern time. And honestly, if fan, you've probably quoted no half the script, especially Val Kilmer's iconic performance Holiday. His incisive speech with wit and swagger has declined that definitive depiction of gambling gunslinger. You might think you know each line, showdown, dramatic movie stare down. But now the twist. Hidden are stories most Tombstone fans know never heard. And once you know them, you'll never watch the film same way. First, Tombstone was more than packed. It was full out among the most macho groups Hollywood ever cooperated. Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp. Sam Elliott as Stoic Virgil. Bill Paxton as Doom Morgan. Powers Booth devouring film as Curly Bill. Michael Biehn adds coolness as Johnny Ringo. Before you even get to the supporting cast. Michael Rooker, Hayden Church, Lang, Billy Bob, Zane, Priestley Thornton, Terry O'Quinn left at their marks. Such a lineup that made the film seem grand before firing a shot. Speaking shots, the film was shot virtually entirely completely in Arizona, commencing in May 1993. The Kevin Jarre, screenwriter of Glory and Judgment Night, built the script on genuine events, characters Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday weaving in legends like OK Corral gunfight. Jarre wasn't own writer. This was supposed Tohi's directorial debut. But that dream collapsed rapidly. Overpowered by product on pace, struggling grab crucial photos, and plummeting further behind schedule, Jarre was sacked only 1 month into filming. That shakeup nearly ruined output apart. Michael Biehn, a close buddy Jarre, contemplated leaving. He later admitted feeling replaced, that director Cosmatos didn't know or follow the script. Still, when Cosmatos arrived, the cast stuck together. He brought rigor presence on set, which created friction, especially with cinematographer Frere. Meanwhile, Kurt Russell quietly took charge alongside James Jacks to deconstruct Jarre's lengthy script, trimmed subplots, and emphasizing the Link-Wyatt-Doc relationship. But here's kicker. Russell later admitted it. He, not Cosmatos, directorial flick. According to Russell, Cosmatos was brought in as a wild ghost director. Public face Russell directed the film behind the scenes. Val Kilmer agreed, saying Russell practically directed avoided claiming Russell individually handled each actor. Biehn himself admitted Russell never gave him direction. The truth is clear. Without Russell's leadership, Tombstone may never have become the current classic. Based on advice alone, Russell softly ruled with Cosmatosis his on-set cover. Russell cut self-talk, sleepless hours and made painful decisions to preserve live production. He pledged to keep it secret after Cosmatos' death. He did. After nearly a decade, in 2013, Cosmatos died. Russell finally admitted in a candid interview Western magazine. Cosmatos, his emphasized history accuracy. Everything from costumes to customs props intended to feel authentic. Even iconic moments were built meticulously, but Billy Bob the Thornton saloon scene with Wyatt takes him out, almost entirely improvised. Thornton had one direction: be mean. The result? A famous scene that demonstrated Wyatt's room dominance without drawing his gun. All the actors grew mustaches except John Tenney. You think of Tombstone, imagine dirt, gun smoke, Andes, those wonderful mustaches. But this is it. Those moustaches aren't Hollywood props. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, Paxton, Jason Priestley, Stephen Powers Boothlang, and Michael Biehn pledged dedicated to their roles that they grew real stuff. And no stickins, and no fast fixes, just real Old West hanging their words. Who? Michael Biehn animated Johnny Ringo with Icy Menace, explained obsession's location come from. The film's Kevin Jarre original director was strict at detail. Mustaches were his goal. Grown but stylized uniquella wax polished curled ensmen in the 1880s wore them. It was more than facial hair. It was character building. The cast took a wearing it with odd pride, display their mustaches proudly. Not everyone could join Brotherhood. Player John Tenney Sheriff Johnny Bien arrived fresh. Another role and couldn't add one time. That required faking. Bain said Tenney had that joke that set shame was quiet. He felt like the group's little dog because his mustache was fake. It's a meaner detail but says all about Tombstone. Even the whiskers must be real. In one example of authenticity casting where Tombstone nearly appeared different. William D. Fulmos portrayed Doc Holliday. Just about impossible to imagine anyone except Val Kilmer. Gives me razor-sharp your perfect Huckleberry combo charm and menace. If you believe it, the studio didn't immediately choose Kilmer. The Doc Holliday character was created for William Dafoe. Imagine William Dafoe entering legendary gunslinger boots. They would have played Dafoe, but sole issue was Hollywood politics. Universal was hesitant about Dafoe after Last Temptation Christ caused controversy 5 years earlier. His Last Temptation Rollie-off Christ cost him Tombstone. The what-ifs continue. Legend Mickey Rourke was offered Johnny Ringo died. Nobody seems to understand why. Was it scheduling, disputes, creative differences? Perhaps he didn't think it was right role for him? Whatever the reason, the portion vanished. Imagine that momentarily. Smoldering Rourke unpredictability versus Kilmer's humorous, dying document. Instead, the actor Michael Biehn delivered a chilling performance. Ironically, Rourke returned to the Western genre years later, appearing in Danny Cho's DVD horror Western Dead in Tombstone. Now, not as a gunslinger as Lucifer. Talk contemplating trading 6 shooters for eternity damnation. Regarding Fire and Brimstone, discuss the man who illuminated Gravestone like no one else could. Star Val Kilmer stole the show. Doc Holliday was not a true herp, but Tombstone. He could have been heart of the story. While Kurt Russell, Elliott, Paxton supported the Herp brothers, Val Kilmer's Doc grabbed everything. Every frame, line, instant. His portrayal was more than acting. Channeling. Original Wyatt Herp described his best mate as towel rail-thin, ash blonde man destroyed by TB, but unsurpassed at gaming table and lightning fast with Agan. Kilmer embraced that description. Overly detailed. Not just memorized lines. He created a character whose charm and menace and weakness. Holliday's cough wasn't overdone. It haunted. His appeal wasn't southernly generic. It improved. And deliberate after careful research Holliday's Georgian heritage. And so quickly draw screen content. Kilmer drilled at it relentlessly until the right time flawless. But perfection cost. Price. Summer Arizona filming was. Cruel. And Kilmer's will suits made every day attest. He sweated through takes, but never break the show. Off camera, he observed Holliday's habits, manners, and history, assuring part was more than a parody gunslinger dies. The result, a crisp and furious performance overshadowed even leads. Critics honored Kilmer and crowned him Tombstone's soul. Fans remain whether it's the best Western ever filmed performance. But here's the finale. Kilmer subsequently admitted seeing Holiday as cursed and free. Dying young gave him nothing to lose that made him the most deadly manroom. The slight edge is why Doc does more than support Herp's he defines film. That subtle edge why Doc doesn't just support film Herps are defined by him. But wild stuff here. Just like Doc himself, as Tombstone is now half the tale. What viewers saw theaters didn't show everything at all. The initial cut was too long that could have been different movie. Tombstone was supposed to be over 3 hours long. When Tombstone hit DVD, fans finally saw further footage that broadened their world loved. This is the catch. Not the final cut included everything. One of the most intriguing deleted moments: Cowboy bonfire, mourning their fallen comrades following the corral burial. The sequence appears in the film trailer, teases audiences, but it disappeared from the film. Another edit victim was extended courtship between Wyatt and Josephine. Romance played wonderfully on screen, but trimmed down maintained the film's momentum intact. While Tombstone debuted and there were other Wyatts in December 1993, an ongoing Herp project. Warner with their own version, brothers Kevin Costner written and directed by Lawrence Kasdan. The verdict: audiences praised Tombstone's speed and Kasdan's historical detail is crisp. The film was bloated and boring. Most don't realize that true Wyatt Herp defeated Hollywood first. Years ago, if Russell and Costner entered his Herp, walked studio lots in booths sharing stories with directors, Americanized the Old West favorite myth. Real Wyatt Herp was consultant to Hollywood. The real Wyatt, not just any Herp, rode off into the sunset his law enforcement days over. He went to Hollywood. The aged gunslinger moved in 1915 west to Los Angeles, carving out an unexpected second consulting gig for the industry that would change his legend became folklore. Herp found himself rubbing shoulders Western genre pioneers, men like John Ford and actor Henry Carey, who were laying the foundation for what would soon become Hollywood's most enduring staple. His stories of Dodge City and the OK Corral weren't just tales. They were first-hand accounts shaping how early filmmakers depicted the Old West on screen, and the influence didn't stop there. Herp became a quiet but powerful figure among the up-and-coming cowboy stars. John Wayne later admitted that he met Herp once, and the impression was so strong that he modeled his signature, slow, deliberate walk after him. That walk became Wayne's trademark and, by extension, one of the most iconic images of Western cinema. Herp's connections didn't end with Wayne and Ford. He was also acquainted with silent era stars like William S. Hart and Tom Mix, men who carried the cowboy myth into America's living rooms long before color film. When Herp died in 1929, both Hart and Mix served as bearers at his funeral. A final nod to the way the man who lived the West had passed his torch to the men who would immortalize it. The kicker: Wyatt Herp, a man who once stared down outlaws at gunpoint, ended up shaping the way generations of moviegoers imagined the Wild West, not just as a gunslinger, but as Hollywood's first true cowboy consultant. Tombstone's missing a few Herps. The heroic trio at the center of Tombstone, Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan Herp, felt like the whole story. Kurt Russell's steel-eyed Wyatt, Sam Elliott's gravel voice, Virgil, and Bill Paxton's boyish yet battle-ready Morgan were the heartbeat of the film. But here's a secret: the real Herp family was much bigger. In fact, there were 9 siblings in total. Beyond the famous brothers stood sisters Martha, Virginia, and Adelia, half-brother Newton, eldest brother James, and the youngest Warren. James, a gambler, saloon keeper, and Union veteran, was actually in Tombstone the day of the OK Corral showdown, though he was reportedly at home eating lunch when bullets started flying. Warren wasn't in town either, but after Morgan's murder, Wyatt deputized him. Warren rode alongside Wyatt, Doc Holliday, and other son the bloody vendetta ride that followed. But for all the family ties and blood loyalty, Wyatt's legend wasn't built on the number of siblings he had. It came from the kind of moments that made people shake their heads and say, "That can't be real." Wyatt Herp really waded into a creek to shoot Curly Bill. While Russell was taking charge of Tombstone behind the camera, history itself gave the film one of its most unbelievable showdowns. The scene where Wyatt Herp wades into a creek to face down Curly Bill feels almost supernatural. Gunfire explodes all around him, bullets slicing the air, yet not a single one finds its mark. Herp doesn't flinch. He walks straight through the hail of lead before unloading both barrels of his shotgun into Curly Bill, dropping the outlaw where he stood. It plays like something straight out of legend. But here's the truth. It actually happened. In real life, one of Curly Bill's men, Johnny Barnes, survived the ambush. Long and Otto tell the tale. Dying from his wounds in a nearby farmhouse, Barnes described Herp's near miraculous feat exactly as the film later portrayed it. A lawman striding through impossible odds untouchable until the very end. That moment blurred the line between myth and reality. And it left Wyatt Earp with the kind of reputation you don't just earn, you survive to tell. Doc Holliday actually did say, "You're a daisy if you do." Now, speaking of legends, here's a tale that's too good not to stop on. Doc Holliday really did say, "You're a daisy if you do." That line delivered by Val Kilmer with that sly, half-dead grin in Tombstone isn't a Hollywood invention. It's straight from history. Reports from the Tombstone epitaph and other sources confirm Holliday taunted his enemies with those exact words during the OK Corral showdown. But then comes the bigger question. What about the most famous line of them all? "I'm your huckleberry." Did Doc Holliday ever actually say it? Did Kilmer even say it the way we think he did? That debate has raged online for years. According to True West magazine, the phrase first surfaced in Walter Noble Burns's 1928 book, Tombstone, based on interviews with locals who lived through the chaos. In old Southern slang, "I'm your huckleberry" meant, "I'm the right man for the job," or with more bite, "If it's a fight you're looking for, I'm ready." Given that Holliday was born in Georgia, the line fits him like a tailored suit dripping with aristocratic bravado. Still, there's a darker interpretation. Some insist Holliday actually said, "I'm your hucklebearer." A huckle was slang for the handles on a coffin, making a hucklebearer a pallbearer. Read that way, the line becomes a death sentence, as if Doc was telling Ringo, "If you're ready to die, I'll be the one to carry you." Here's where it gets juicy. The Tombstone screenplay itself, fourth draft, dated March 15, 1993, spells it out in black and white. It says huckleberry. No pallbearers, no alternate spellings, just the line that became one of the most iconic mic drops in Western cinema. Doc Holliday and Frederick Chopin have a sod connection. Doc Holliday doesn't just spit one-liners in Tombstone. He drops words that cut deep, the kind that stick with you long after the gun's smoke clears. His lines became more than dialogue. They turned into t-shirts, patches, and memes. Proof that even his sharpest throwaway remarks had a kind off-outlaw poetry. Take that profanity-laced jab he throws at Billy Clanton, played by Thomas Hayden Church. On the surface, it's just another of Doc's witty insults, but underneath it carries a weight that's easy to miss. The line nods to Frederick Chopin, the brilliant composer whose melancholy music Doc plays on the piano. The irony, both men were slowly being eaten alive by the same disease, tuberculosis. That parallel hits hard. Here's Doc Holliday coughing up blood between shootouts, channeling the ghost of a composer who decades earlier had written lines drenched in despair. Chopin once admitted, "I wish I could throw off the thoughts which poison my happiness. Booty take a kind of pleasure in indulging them." Doesn't that sound exactly like something Val Kilmer's Doc would murmur? Half a smirk hiding the agony beneath. Chopin died in 1849, just 2 years before Holliday was even born. And yet, through fate or poetry, their lives became intertwined. Two brilliant but doomed men linked by genius, sorrow, and the same disease that would claim them both. Tombstone has plenty of Hollywood Western Easter eggs. Tombstone isn't just a Western, it's a love letter to Stearns. The filmmakers weren't content with simply retelling history. They wove tributes that any sharp-eyed fan of the genre would recognize. For one, they slipped a piece of the Herp bloodline right into the story. Wyatt Earp's real-life fifth cousin actually appears in the film, stepping into the role of Billy Claiborne. That's not just casting. That's heritage folded straight onto the screen. Then there's the voice taking us through the story. The film's narrator isn't just anyone. It's Hollywood icon Robert Mitchum, a man whose voice held the weight off decades of cinematic harshness. Hearing him sets the tone before the first gun is drawn. The Easter eggs don't stop there. The cast itself is laced with Western royalty. Harry Carey Jr., who worked along with John Wayne, Buck Taylor, anyone who watched it as a kid, the massive Charlton H. and Gunsmoke, who seems bigger than life. It continued after Tombstone. Late Powers and Paula Malcolmson Booth returned to writing in the HBO series Deadwood is another classic the genre. While Tombstone gave audiences memorable gunfights, it also winked at Hollywood's Western roots and tributed its future. The original Tombstone film. Early in Tombstone, camera stays on a headstone-sharp epitaph, seems like a Halloween prop. Here lies Lester Moore .4 slugs from .4. No less, no more. It sounds too cheeky and brilliant to be genuine. The twist. It is real. The identical inscription is on a tombstone, Arizona, grave marking the grave of a man who met with the wrong gun. One of the ancient West folklore that feels written for movies, but history one. Go Hollywood. Just the stone you see in the film is fake. That filmed at Knott Berry Farm Wild Park in Southern California. The West section has a replica of Lester Moore is buried among the attractions. Hollywood magic layered over Wild West history. Kurt Russell allegedly has piles of unreleased shoot footage. Footage fans want in a final director's cut. Will we ever get it? No one knows. But until then, all we can do is keep quoting the version we have. And let's be honest, the one we've loved enough to make Tombstone a legend. 17 crew members either quit or were fired after the demanding Cosmos took over as director. When Kevin Jerry was pushed out of Tombstone, the set didn't just change hands, it changed energy. George P. Cosmato went in with a strong hand and a no-nonsense style that immediately stirred things up. Kurt Russell softly worked behind the curtain, putting together daily shot lists, but on the ground, Cosmatos ruled the set like a general. One of his first calls, scrapped basically everything Jara had already photographed. That a complete month of labor was chucked out and Cosmatos practically started afresh. He imported the explosive Mexican wedding massacre to start film. Increased action at the climax closed the deal. Bigger, louder, bloodier. The vision was his. But that vision was costly. His autocratic approach hurt the personnel and tension erupted. As many reports say, 17 crew members left or get fired during production. Production designer Catherine Hardwick remembered it well, calling Cosmos demanding, persistent, pushing people without fair to the edge. Some thrived on intensity. Others panicked. N01 sensed the clash more than cinematographer Frere. He quit .3 times, filming times. The conflict between his and Cosmatos became so cruel they ran golf carts into each authera clandestine battle like a Western satire. Still, Franker stayed. Producer James each time, Jax pulled him back, reminding him that this wasn't another film. It was Tombstone. Later, Franker admitted he survived the pandemonium because everything, the footage looked incredible. His own words, "If I didn't like the list screen would be different, but I think we have a film." Sam Elliott hated Kurt Russell's script modifications. Kurt Russell wasn't simply lugging his shoulders carried Wyatt Earp. He dominated the film. When he entered the ghost role, quietly director's toughest decision was removing nearly 30 Kevin Page's original Jara script. Those cuts aren't random. Russell, producer Jax sought to improve the plot. Attention on the relationship between Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. For Russell, that romance wasn't a sideline, the film's heart. Hellitter called Wyatt and Doc one of greatest love relationships ever. Two men, considering it odd, violent, unsaid, but profound, strongly devoted. This was about brotherhood, sacrifice, and love without words understood. Not everyone agreed. Changes. Sam Elliott brought Virgil Earp was openly supported. Admitted he disliked the ending rewrite. Believed the original script had been one of his favorite books. Too much was cut away. And Elliott believes eliminating those 29 pages gutted connective tissue, character development, and the tiny details that shaped the tale. If he was given that script, he initially claimed he might not even signed on. A conflict arose. Visions. Russell chasing emotions, tension between Doc and Wyatt. Elliott wants more layers. Jara wrote epic. In some place, Tombstone sprang from that halfway ground. The modern, slimmer version, quicker, and cult classic or the status. What Tombstone? Discovery you never knew now. Share in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Click the next video shown on screen. You'll like.